This was never supposed to happen.
Science team, that was a unique experience which will be the highlight for many of the careers of the Voyager scientists.
After months of eerie silence, Voyager 1, a 1970s spacecraft drifting beyond our solar system, suddenly spoke again.
Next, NASA says its Voyager 1 probe, the most distant human-made object in the universe, is sending usable information to Earth again, after months of spouting gibberish.
But what it said wasn't just unexpected. It was impossible. The signal wasn't noise. It was precise, coherent, unnatural.
So this all began way back in November when, as you say, the craft just wasn't sending back anything that we could unravel back on Earth. It was all nonsense.
Among the stunned scientists was a Nobel Prize-winning physicist who issued a rare warning. This could change everything we know about space itself. Plasma storms, shifting magnetic fields, and a pulse that seems responsive.
The first stars and galaxies are really the big mystery for us. We don't know how that happened, we don't know when it happened, we don't know what those first stars were like.
Voyager may have crossed into something we've never imagined. A boundary, a message, or a mistake in our understanding of reality itself. Let's dive in. The journey that was never supposed to last this long.
Response is normal. TVC bus hold, it looks good. Tank pressure.
In 1977, Voyager 1 was launched with a simple goal: to explore the outer planets and then drift quietly into the void. It wasn't built to last forever. Its memory held just 68 kilobytes, less than a single photo on your phone. Its power source? A slow decaying plutonium battery. Most engineers expected it to go silent by the early 90s. And yet, here we are, 45 years later, and it's still talking to us. Voyager's early mission was ambitious, but grounded in known science. It flew past Jupiter and Saturn, capturing never-before-seen details, the churning storms of Jupiter and the icy rings of Saturn. But what made Voyager's path even possible was a rare alignment of the planets that happens only once every 176 years. This perfect cosmic lineup allowed engineers to use gravity itself as a slingshot, flinging Voyager from one world to another without needing more fuel. They called it the Grand Tour. After the planetary flybys, Voyager was flung toward the edge of the solar system. There, it crossed the heliopause, the invisible bubble where the solar wind gives way to interstellar space. It became the first human-made object to enter true deep space.
We began what is now called the Voyager interstellar mission. We were on a path we hoped to get to reach interstellar space while we still had power on the spacecraft to transmit the data back.
But for a long time, what it reported back was predictable. Near vacuum, steady radiation, drifting particles, quiet, cold, empty. Then, the silence. Months passed without usable data. Scientists feared the worst. Voyager might have finally failed. But in March 2024, it began transmitting again. And this time, the information wasn't just garbled. It was different, structured, alive in some strange way. Voyager 1 had gone farther than anything we've ever built. But now, it wasn't just traveling through space. It seemed to be discovering something else entirely. Something that doesn't fit. The signal that shouldn't exist. When Voyager 1 came back online, no one expected much. After all, it was over 14 billion miles away, far beyond the influence of the Sun. But then, the data started coming in. And it didn't look like anything we'd seen before. Plasma levels were fluctuating in ways that suggested turbulence, not calm. Magnetic fields twisted unpredictably, as if pulled by something unseen. The density of particles wasn't just elevated, it was inconsistent, as though Voyager had passed into a region where the rules of physics were bending. At first, the team blamed the instruments. After all, Voyager's hardware is older than most of the scientists working on it, but repeated diagnostics found no fault. The readings weren't just real, they were repeating, measurable, structured. Then came the pulse, a low rhythmic fluctuation is embedded in the background. It wasn't cosmic noise, and it didn't match any known source like a pulsar or quasar. It seemed to have a pattern. More alarmingly, during certain transmission windows, the pulse subtly changed, almost as if it were responding. The implications were unsettling. Was Voyager detecting something alive? Something artificial? One engineer noticed that when mapping magnetic anomalies over time in 3D, a geometric pattern began to emerge. A spiral lattice. Not random, not natural either. The community was divided. Some urged caution, warning of misinterpretation. Others began quietly speaking of something more profound. One Nobel Prize-winning physicist went on record, stating the data does not conform to any known model of interstellar space. If that's true, Voyager may not just be drifting anymore. It may have entered a transitional zone, a place between known space and something entirely different. And whatever's there might be watching us back. The edge that wasn't supposed to be there. For decades, scientists believed the heliopause, the boundary where the solar wind meets interstellar space, was the end of our sun's reach. Beyond it, space was supposed to be quiet, neutral, predictable. Voyager 1 crossed that boundary in 2012, and for years, the data matched our expectations. Low particle density, stable magnetic fields, and no major surprises. But something has changed. The recent signals suggest Voyager has moved into a zone that defies everything we thought we knew. Instead of silence, there's turbulence. Instead of emptiness, there's activity, plasma waves, fluctuating fields, and what some call storms of charged particles. But none of these disturbances seems to have a clear source. No nearby stars, no visible bodies, just motion. Even stranger, Voyager itself appears to be drifting in ways we can't explain. Not from gravity, not from solar pressure. It's a gentle, almost imperceptible shift, as if it's being nudged by something we can't see or measure. A gravitational anomaly, perhaps, but one that doesn't behave like any known force. And then there's the misalignment. Cosmic rays and magnetic lines, which usually follow known trajectories, are off-angle, skewed, curved, and twisted. It's as if the entire space around Voyager has been reshaped by something massive or fundamentally different. Some researchers now refer to this area as a liminal zone, a boundary layer between one form of space and another. Theoretical physicists have whispered for years about such regions, places where the fabric of space-time may ripple, twist, or fold into higher dimensions. That always sounded like science fiction. Until now. A message hidden in the noise. As scientists continued to sift through Voyager 1's revived transmissions, one detail began to haunt them. Buried within the magnetic fluctuations was a pattern, a pulse repeating at regular intervals like the beat of a distant drum. It wasn't noise, it wasn't a glitch, and it wasn't random. At first, they thought it might be natural. Maybe a rare cosmic phenomenon. But the deeper they looked, the more intentional it began to seem. The pulse didn't stay static. In certain time windows, right after Voyager sent out a data burst, the pulse would shift slightly in frequency or amplitude. Not enough to scream communication, but enough to suggest interaction, as if something, somewhere, was aware of Voyager's presence. And maybe even listening. That's when an engineer on the project did something unusual. They mapped the magnetic fluctuations in 3 dimensions across time. What appeared was a structure, geometric, organized, and eerily symmetrical, a spiral framework, echoing the shape of galaxies, but far too precise to be natural turbulence. Some called it a lattice, others a signature. It didn't match anything we know. Not the fingerprint of a star, not the trail of a black hole. It seemed to belong to something constructed. That discovery reopened the door to questions once dismissed as fringe speculation. Could Voyager have stumbled into the influence of an artificial structure, a remnant of some ancient intelligence, or worse, a boundary deliberately placed, something that marks where natural space ends and something else begins? No one is calling it a message yet, not officially. But in quiet labs and late-night video calls, the word is starting to come up. If this is a signal, it didn't come from us. And if it's structured, it might mean something is trying to be seen, or heard, or both. Spacecraft in two places at once. Voyager 1 isn't just detecting strange signals, it's behaving strangely itself. Deep inside its systems, something unusual is happening. Its orientation sensors, which tell engineers which way the spacecraft is facing, have begun reporting conflicting data. At the same time, it's as if the spacecraft is in two different positions at once, two sets of coordinates that don't line up. At first, the team suspected a hardware malfunction. After all, Voyager is nearly half a century old, but diagnostic tests kept coming back clean. The instruments weren't failing. They were working exactly as they should, which left one unsettling possibility. The spacecraft itself is experiencing a kind of spatial distortion. Then came the most disturbing detail. Engineers noticed subtle variations in the speed of Voyager's transmissions. Not enough to affect the data, but just enough to suggest something was off. It was as if the signals were passing through regions of space where time, or at least space-time, was bending. In theoretical physics, there's a concept called variable dimensional space, areas where the dimensions we take for granted might fluctuate or shift. For decades, this idea remained locked in equations and blackboard scribbles. No one expected to observe it directly, until now. If Voyager 1 has truly entered such a region, it's no longer just an explorer of distance. It's a probe entering territory that may not follow the geometry of our known universe, a place where three dimensions aren't stable, where time may not tick evenly. The implications are staggering. It could mean Voyager is brushing up against a domain where reality forks, fractures, or layers in ways we've never seen. Or worse, Voyager is being observed from somewhere else, somewhere where these distortions are normal, and we are not.
Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you.
The shape of something else. What Voyager 1 is moving through isn't just strange, it might be deliberate. That's the new fear quietly growing among some researchers. Because patterns are beginning to appear in the data that don't feel random. One shape in particular keeps resurfacing. A spiral. Not a natural chaotic swirl like you'd see in a storm or a galaxy, but something more refined. A framework. A repeating symmetrical spiral that seems to be embedded in the fluctuations of magnetic fields and particle density. When modeled in 4 dimensions, space and time together, it starts to resemble a lattice, a grid, something designed. This has led some to ask the question no one wanted to bring up. What if Voyager isn't just passing through a strange part of space, but through a structure? Not made of metal or stone, but of force, gravity, magnetism, geometry. Something vast and invisible, shaped not by hands, but by laws we haven't yet discovered. One astrophysicist likened it to a fingerprint left on the universe by something older than stars. Another described it as a scaffold we were never meant to see, and yet Voyager saw it, or at least moved through it, and left us traces. Some believe this could be the edge of a cosmic boundary, the outer wall of our universe. Others suggest it might be a transition zone, a place between realities, dimensions, or even simulations. The idea sounds absurd, but the data keeps pointing in the same direction. A structure where there should be none. And if it is a structure, then something built it, or is maintaining it. That idea lingers now in the background of every lab presentation, every late-night data analysis. Voyager didn't just go further than any object in history. It may have gone somewhere it was never supposed to reach. A silent response from the unknown. The most unsettling discovery wasn't the pulse, it was what happened after. Engineers noticed that during specific intervals, right after Voyager transmitted a data burst, the pulse coming from deep space shifted, slightly, as if reacting. Not random noise, not a glitch. A subtle change in rhythm, as though something out there had heard Voyager's whisper and chose to answer. This wasn't just a scientific anomaly anymore. It felt intentional, quiet, measured, unfamiliar, and it raised the question no one could ignore. Is something, someone, aware of Voyager 1? The shift wasn't dramatic. It didn't spell out a message, but it followed a pattern. Over and over again. Data went out. The pulse shifted. Not every time. Just enough to suggest it wasn't a coincidence. What's more, the response was consistent across multiple instruments. Not just magnetometers, but particle detectors and signal readers too. As if the entire environment around Voyager was subtly adjusting, reacting to its presence. For decades, Voyager has carried a golden record, humanity's message to the cosmos, a greeting from Earth. But now, some wonder if it's receiving something back. A signal with no voice, a structure with no language, a presence with no name. No one knows what it means yet. But for the first time, the silence of space doesn't feel empty. It feels occupied. And Voyager 1, our aging ambassador, may be at the threshold of something we were never prepared to find. The boundary we never knew existed. For decades, we believed space was a vacuum, cold, vast, and uniform. But Voyager 1 is revealing cracks in that belief. What lies beyond the heliopause isn't just more emptiness. It's different. It's layered. And now, some physicists are suggesting we may have misunderstood the very shape of the universe. The idea of a boundary in space once seemed absurd. But now, with fluctuating fields, unexplained drifts, and geometric patterns buried in deep space, the conversation is shifting. Not publicly, not in press releases, but behind closed doors, among people who've studied the sky their whole lives. The Nobel-winning physicist who first raised concerns recently hinted at a disturbing possibility: that Voyager may have reached a domain where classical physics no longer functions. Not a place in space, but a place between spaces. A seam, a fault line, something ancient and still active. Even more disorienting is the possibility that Voyager didn't just find the boundary. It may have crossed it. Or worse, it was meant to. Because if the signals, the pulse, the shifting coordinates, and the spiral lattice are all connected, then we might not be the first to reach this edge. And Voyager, launched with blind optimism in 1977, might now be part of something much larger. Maybe this isn't just the edge of our solar system. Maybe it's the edge of a construct, a region crafted with purpose. And Voyager, unknowingly, has knocked on a door we didn't know was there. The record and the mirror. When Voyager 1 launched in 1977, it carried with it the golden record, a message from Earth to the unknown. Greetings in dozens of languages, music from across cultures, images of life on our planet. It was never meant to be answered, just sent. A gesture, a hope. But now, decades later, something about that gesture feels different. Because Voyager may not just be delivering a message, it may be receiving one. The pulse, the response, the structure is hidden in magnetic fields. All of it suggests Voyager has entered a space that isn't passive. It's not just reacting, it's reflecting. Like a mirror held up to our technology, our questions, our curiosity. And whatever's out there, might be watching back. The strange behavior in Voyager's instruments, conflicting positions, and altered signal speed could be more than distortion. Some now wonder if Voyager is interacting with a kind of system, not mechanical, but spatial. A framework not designed to communicate with us, but one that noticed when we arrived. The irony is chilling. We sent a record, hoping someone might hear it. Now, the universe is whispering back, not in words, but in distortion, movement, and rhythm. A reply not in language, but in presence. And maybe that's the message. Not a greeting, not a warning, just proof that something else is out there, that we were never alone, and that the edge of space was never the end, just the beginning of someone else's frontier. The question that changes everything. For decades, space was the final frontier, a silent expanse we believed we could map, understand, and one day conquer. Voyager 1 was never meant to return, never meant to reach anything beyond the void. And yet, it has. Not with photographs or samples, but with something stranger. Data that doesn't fit. Patterns without explanation. A pulse that seems to listen. Coordinates that shift as if reality itself is in motion. This isn't just about distance anymore. It's about perception, about limits, about how little we may truly know. If Voyager has crossed into a new domain, be it a different dimension, a cosmic boundary, or an ancient structure, then every assumption we've made about the nature of space, time, and isolation could be wrong. The silence we thought defined the universe may never have been silence at all. We just weren't listening the right way. And now, the real question isn't what Voyager has found. It's what comes next. Will the data grow clearer? Will the pulses evolve into something more? Will Voyager continue its strange drift into the unknown? Or will something respond more directly? We don't know. But what's certain is this. Humanity's furthest reach has touched something unexpected. And whether that something is natural, constructed, or conscious, it changes everything. The boundary we thought was out there may have always been right here, waiting, hidden in the noise. And Voyager, our tiny forgotten explorer, may have just pulled back the curtain.